Thank you. So I know we've literally just met, but we need to have a frank conversation about someone very important in your life. And this is somebody who makes you snap at your significant other or your coworkers, makes you lose patience with your kids if you have them. If you've got a little bit of fat around your midsection that you just cannot get rid of no matter what you do, this person's most likely to blame because they also make you eat a lot of junk food and they think that the middle of the night is the perfect time to think about all the things that are causing you stress. And this person also follows you to work every day and they distract you from your long-term goals. They make you lose focus and they plant seeds of negativity and defensiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about Pete. Now, you might be thinking, this guy sounds like a complete bastard, and there's no way I would ever let somebody like this in my life. But Pete represents your biological, evolutionary, hardwired stress response, in addition to the ancient, primitive portion of your brain. All the things that Pete makes you do are how you are physiologically designed to respond to stress. And he also represents your ancient, primitive brain. Now, so Pete's not really a bad guy because his number one job is to really protect you and to keep you alive. But the way he does it in today's modern age is oftentimes ill-suited to the environments that we're living and working in. So Pete's just a little bit misunderstood, and so I like to call him Sneaky Pete because you really could not have made it this far in your life without him. Like you are his number one priority. And Sneaky Pete not only possesses the key to helping you build your resiliency to stress, believe it or not, he's also one of the world's most brilliant chemists. Now, Sneaky Pete actually introduced himself to me on the freeway. One day I was driving in my car and I saw a billboard that was part of an insurance carrier's campaign trying to get people to move and exercise more. And I loved this campaign because it was kicky, it was snarky, it was fun. It wasn't using guilt or fear to try to motivate people to exercise more. The billboard said, cavemen. They had no cars, they had no escalators, they had no love handles. And I thought, cute, they did it again, it's another fun ad. But the more I started thinking about this, the more brilliant I realized it was. Because our ancestors led highly stressful lives. And stress produces a hormone called cortisol, which makes us deposit more fat around the midsection. But our ancestors also did the fighting and the fleeing in response to stress, which burned off those hormones. So if they did have a little bit of extra fat, it most likely wasn't just plopped all around their waist. Now, I have no idea if they consulted an exercise physiologist or if this was even their intent. But what they're really talking about is the physiology of the stress response, and it inspired me to do several years worth of research. So the thing is, we oftentimes think stress is just something that happens in our heads. But the truth is, stress is a chemical, hormonal event that radically changes our chemistry and our physiology. So anytime we are exposed to a stressful event, whether it is real or imagined, whether it is physiological or psychological, the stress response is triggered. And stress hormones like adrenaline, noradrenaline, and cortisol come gushing into our bloodstream. And they stimulate the body to release energy from storage sites. And this energy gives immediate fuel for our muscles to be able to fight and or flee. Now, when we get this short burst of intense physical activity related to fighting and fleeing, it produces another set of hormones, things like endorphins, that restore calm. They blunt pain. They enhance immunity and health and sleep. So the end result of the stress response is that balance is restored. Like, this is a beautifully designed system, but the critical component to getting balance is this short burst of intense physical activity. And this is something that I call play it out. Now, we currently live and work in environments where it's not always appropriate to play it out. Like, it's not okay to punch your boss in the face. You cannot take off sprinting out of a stressful meeting. You know, you're stuck in rush hour traffic, unable to move. You spend long hours sitting behind a desk, and you're just left stewing in these toxic stress hormones that are really having a lot of negative side effects on the body and the brain. But it's really lack of movement that's short-circuiting this system. So I mentioned cortisol is one of the stress hormones that's released. So physically, cortisol makes us crave high-fat, high-sugar foods when we're stressed out. Our ancestors really lived on the margins of energy balance, okay? They spent, a lot of energy every day just finding food and resources. And then when you throw in fighting and fleeing on top of that, that was a lot of energy. So cortisol makes us hungry to replace that energy that was spent. Cortisol also makes us deposit fat around the midsection, which I like to just refer to as our fight or flight fuel allocation stations. The stress response really raids the energy pantry of our fat cells. And so cortisol's job is to restock the shelves. But unfortunately, this visceral fat then raises the risk of things like cardiovascular disease, of diabetes, and certain forms of cancer. When you can't sleep and you have insomnia when you're stressed out, this is a direct result of cortisol. And if that's not bad enough, I'm just full of good news for you today, aren't I? It also affects brain structure and brain function. Cortisol kills cells in the brain related to memory and learning. And stress also allows Sneaky Pete to take control of the brain. Anytime we're stressed out, Sneaky Pete hijacks the advanced part of our brain that's responsible for higher thought, for learning, and self-control. Which is why oftentimes when we're stressed out, we will find ourselves, making short-sighted decisions, getting impatient with others, because Sneaky Pete has advanced brain in a headlock and is totally making important business and life decisions. When we're stressed out, Sneaky Pete is courting our significant other, and he's raising our kids if we have them. The other thing that's really important to note about stress is that it is not possible to reduce your stress. And usually the conversation about stress is, how can we reduce or minimize your stress? Well, I've got a question for you. All right, I want you to raise your hand if you think your job is going to ask any less of you next year. No hands, okay? Raise your hand if you think your friends, your family, your loved ones are going to ask any less of you next year. No hands again, okay? So the idea of stress reduction it's very seductive, but the reality is the stress in your life is going to continue to increase, and there's really not much you can do about it. I've spent 20 years really traveling the globe, working with and speaking to corporate audiences, and I continue to see a lot of the same things over and over again. People are burned out. They're sick. They're disconnected from their loved ones. They're unhappy, and they are exhausted. So what we're doing now to deal with stress is not working. So my approach as an exercise physiologist is vastly different. If the stress in your life is going to increase, then you've only got one option, and that is to build your resiliency to stress. And what I mean by this is that there is a way to train your body to recover more quickly and more efficiently from stress so that you're ready for that next stressor that is coming. And there is also a way to train your body to improve its threshold for stress. Now, I teach audiences different tools from cognitive to physiological to build their resiliency, but we've only got 18 minutes today. So I just want to share one of these with you. And this takes us back to Sneaky Pete and Play It Out. I wanted to know a lot more about these endorphins that are produced in response to the fight or flight response. I wanted to know exactly how much physical activity is needed, at what intensity, and for how long. So I spent weeks poring over the research journals, and here's what I found. Your body produces endorphins after 30 to 60 seconds of intense physical activity. And if you think about this, it makes complete sense. The fight or flight response for our ancestors was very quick. It did not go on for hours, for days, for weeks. Either it was over with or they were over with, and it happened very quickly. It played itself out, right? So, playing it out, getting this short burst really is the antidote for stress. It is a pharmacy that we always have access to. So you are always 30 to 60 seconds away from stress relief because that's all it takes to play it out and hit that reset button. Now, play it out not only restores your chemistry and physiology, it is one of the best ways to improve your body's resiliency to stress. What happens to your heart rate when you're exposed to a stressful event? It speeds up, right? Okay. And then when that stressful event is over, what happens to your heart rate? It slows back down, right? Okay. So the faster your heart rate recovers from stress, the more resilient you are. Okay, well, what happens to your heart rate when you exercise? It goes up, right? And then when you're done exercising, what happens to your heart rate? It goes down, okay? So as soon as the stress of exercise is removed, the heart rate drops and recovers. And how we measure somebody's level of fitness is how quickly the heart rate drops and recovers after the stress of exercise is removed. There is a direct connection between training your heart rate to drop and recover after the stress of exercise and getting your heart rate to drop and recover from the stress of everyday life. Training the heart rate to recover from any type of stress, whether it is physical, mental, or emotional, improves the body's resiliency. Now, play it out, and these short bursts of interval training also raise our threshold for what the body perceives to be a stressful event. It raises the trigger point at which the body decides something is stressful. So now we can handle more before we freak out. And research has shown that people with a higher level of fitness are more successful in dealing with their stress than those who have a lower level of fitness. And the data suggest an inverse relationship. The higher your level of fitness, the lower your level of stress. So this short burst of activity, it really is a tonic that really does not take us long to access. So what does this look like for you? Okay, when you're doing your cardiovascular exercise, interval train instead of getting your heart rate up and maintaining that same heart rate for the duration of your workout. So what you do is for a short period of time, work really hard, push yourself to a level of discomfort, and then follow that with a brief period of recovery. And then you just repeat this cycle multiple times. So any activity can be made interval training, walking, running, biking, swimming, playing a sport, because all you're doing is increasing the speed, the resistance, or the intensity for that brief period of time, and then decreasing that intensity, speed, or resistance. A hill, one set of stairs makes a great interval training short burst workout. Just go up as hard and fast as you can, and then turn around and come down a little bit more slowly. I always like to tell people, if you have your body and gravity's turned on, you're good to go. Because several quick repetitions of squats, of lunges, of burpees, of push-ups, they not only elevate your heart rate, they're also challenging your muscles, which is checking both boxes. It is stimulating fighting and fleeing. And also, think about during the course of your workday, when you're experiencing stress, find a way to play it out. Remember, it only takes 30 to 60 seconds. Now, of course, it's not always realistic for you to drop what you're doing and start playing it out, but those stress hormones do stay in your body for quite some time. So whenever you have an opportunity, find a moment to hit that reset button on stress. And a lot of times, it's not actually as difficult as we think it is. So a few years ago, I was doing a speaking engagement in San Jose, California. And as I was walking out of the airport to find the car that was going to be taking me to my hotel, I spotted something out of the corner of my eye. And I was like, is that really what I think it is? Because it looks like there is an old man jump roping over there. I had to know more. So I walked over and I introduced myself. And this is Ali. And he is a hotel shuttle bus driver. And while he's waiting for his guests to arrive, he pulls out his jump rope and just does a minute or two of exercise to hit that reset button and play it out. So I asked Ali if I could videotape him, and he was very happy to oblige me.
Do that. This is only one leg. This is together, and this is ST. One leg, two legs, seven.
How awesome is this guy? I mean, he is in a dress shirt and khaki pants, and it's his job to sit stationary for 8 hours, driving in high-stress traffic. But when he has a moment, he takes that opportunity to hit the reset button. I mean, this guy's got to be in his late 60s, early 70s, and he is fit and he's resilient. So I think if Ali can do it, all of us can do it. Okay, so play it out. Restores our chemistry and physiology, one of the best ways to improve our resiliency, and it also negates a lot of the negative side effects that happen from stress. Short burst interval training burns up to 36% more fat than steady state training, which is important because if you remember, cortisol is the fat storage hormone. Cardiovascular exercise also stimulates the brain to create new brain cells, specifically in the hippocampus, which is the exact same area that cortisol kills brain cells. Play It Out also wrestles brain control away from Sneaky Pete, because when we get that short burst of intense physical activity, Sneaky Pete gets to do his job, and then he can sit back and relax and let advanced brain take control. And people who exercise not only fall asleep more quickly, they sleep more soundly, and they wake up feeling more refreshed. Play It Out is a tonic for stress, and it's very easy and quick to access. For millions of years, our ancestors responded to the stress in their life with a short burst of physical activity. And this allowed them to respond to the highly stressful nature of their lives in a healthy and resilient way. Just the past 150 years have seen changes that our ancestors never could have imagined. The Industrial Revolution has decreased the amount of intense physical activity that we once got on a daily basis. Plus now we've got technology and labor-saving devices that have further reduced the need for daily movement. And when we couple this with the speed of business, information, and communication, it's no wonder that stress and its negative side effects are on the rise. We may think evolution is over because, I mean, hello, look at you, right? But we are still evolving to the high-stress nature of our lives, and in a lot of ways, it's not good. What hasn't changed is the presence of Sneaky Pete and our hardwiring to respond to stress quickly and physically. So the next time you're experiencing stress, I want you to ask yourself one question. What would a caveman do? Would they surf the internet or binge watch their favorite television show for hours on end? Would they bury themselves in work so that they didn't have to deal with their problems? No, they would play it out. So if you start training to build your resiliency, you will not only survive, but you will thrive well into the future, and it's only going to take you and Sneaky Pete 60 seconds to get started. Thank you.